I was on the fast track towards burnout and like creating way too quickly, way too much. I wasn't feeding myself well. I wasn't sleeping well. I wasn't giving myself a lot of like time to just enjoy the things. Like if I went on a hike, I was still filming and like making sure that I was creating content along the way instead of like enjoying the hike.
Hey travel creators, what's up? Welcome back to another episode. If you're new here, I'm Laura and I am a content strategist for travel creators. And today I have here with me two friends, Logan and Candace. And I met them actually at TravelCon, and this is probably like the third or fourth time I'm even mentioning TravelCon on this podcast. But I met them there this past March, and you know when you meet some people and you're like, you are my kind of people? They are my kind of people, and I can't wait for you to learn even more about them in this episode. So less from me, more from them. Let's get into it.
I'm Candace. I am a photographer, videographer, and travel writer. I was a tour guide and wilderness guide for about 15 years, and now I'm a van lifer creator.
Amazing.
That was good.
Logan, who the hell are you?
I hate following Candace because she's so good at this. So yeah, hi, I'm Logan, and I am a photographer and videographer. I dabble in writing, and I'm a former wildland firefighter who also moved into a van in 2017. And I've been kind of bopping around the US 6 months at a time until 2024 when I fully launched my LLC.
Amazing. And I want people to know that like you guys have done van life before it was a thing. Before it was a thing. Like you are.
Yeah, before it was like on social, at least.
Before there was a hashtag van life, there was
Yeah. Yeah, there's Foster the People, and then there was us.
It's true.
It's funny. We were talking about like why we got into van life yesterday. And like I got into van life in 2019 because I'd been living out of a backpack for so many years. Like between wilderness guiding and then tour guiding and then living in employee housing and then traveling constantly. They're like, I did it to have stability. Oddly enough.
That's so ironic and crazy. But I want to talk to you about slow and intentional travel. And I have to, because you are hashtag OG van life, you know all about slow and intentional travel. But I think from my side of the internet, when I'm on the internet as like a consumer, I see people who are like, I am such an intentional person. I love to be intentional and travel slowly. And I'm like, cool. But I want to know, what does that really mean? And I know there's no rules, but do you have rules? Tell me all about it. What does it really look like?
Ooh, yeah, we do have rules. So let's start with the consumption aspect because you mentioned like being a consumer on the internet. And part of that is being really diligent about what we consume and how we consume. So that means that we're shopping at local small shops. We're not going to like big box stores if we can help it. Sure, there's moments when like the only grocery store is a Smith's or an IGA or whatever. Like that's just part of it. And you have to make do with. Like that's the thing about intentional travel is it's all relative, right? And everybody's on a separate journey. Like we're also not in a tax bracket where we can go to like the local co-op and pay more money for groceries. So like we can't spend $300 on organic vegetables every week or whatever. And so it's all such a spectrum with intentionality, as long as you're being like conscientious of your footprint, not just environmentally, but socially. And so it's about being like really open and aware of your own biases and being conscious or choosing in a way that's going to uplift the local community. And so, I was a tour guide for a long time. And in Alaska, we noticed that like as the cruise ships got bigger and we had more and more and more visitors, we had a harder time as a small city to say like, yo, this is too much. Like our city cannot handle this many people. We became second-class citizens there. And so with intentional travel, you're trying your best to like see a space, enjoy it, embrace it, experience it for what it is without making the local people second-class citizens and feel like they're constantly in service to you. You're not like going to the big hotels where they're paying their employees minimum wage or less in some cases, or like You're not taking away housing from the local people who need to work at these restaurants to keep them operational. So like you see that as an issue in like Vail, some of the islands of Belize, all of those things. Like, so it's being intentional about where you go, how you interact with the place, financially, environmentally, socially. It's the full spectrum of just being really aware and purposeful in your actions.
Yeah.
I love
I would
that.
agree with all that. I might add like two things to that. I think that the biggest thing you can do when you're traveling is don't try to duplicate what you can just get at home. Like, for the love of God, do not go to McDonald's when you are in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Go get you some chili, all right? Like, embrace local things. I think that I see, particularly as a Midwesterner who comes from Midwestern culture where like comfort is king, like leaving your comfort zone is so important when you're out and traveling and like learning new experiences and being open to that. And the other thing is like you've got to be willing to take a risk. So, will you have the best food of your life at this hole in the wall place? Maybe. Will it potentially suck? Absolutely. That's a possibility. But like you're going to get a cool story out of it. You might get the best food of your entire life. Like you never know what's going to happen. And so when you choose the comfortable option when you're traveling, yeah, you'll get something that you're used to and maybe it's way cheaper than everything else, but that comes with its own, trade-offs. And when you are in these communities and you are prioritizing local businesses, they are able to reinvest that money directly back into that community. It does not leave and go to some headquartered in New Jersey corporation, but like it actually goes back to helping all the families that are actually in that community, and it makes such a difference.
Yeah, shopping local is so amazing. One thing I thought of, I had a guest on this podcast. Her name is Champy, and she is a Mexico creator. On the episode, she talked about how she went to a tiny Mexican village and she posted about it. And it absolutely blew up that she thought, I have to take this post down because this town is like not equipped to become a tourist destination. And it's
Yeah.
so like fascinating to me because people have no idea. Like there's two sides of this. Like we are traveling intentionally of choosing awareness of the things that we do and where we put our money. Yet there's also this responsibility of if I post this one thing about this location and it does amazing, like that's such like a heavy weight to carry. And it's just so fascinating that like people aren't aware. That's like a whole nother part of traveling intentionally. People are not aware of what they're creating and how it can literally directly impact the communities they are sharing about. It's wild.
Yeah.
So, is there a way we can still share about our favorite places without running the risk of them going viral? And I think definitely that's one of the amazing things that a newsletter can do for you. They can allow you to have like a paywall or sort of just like a wall up around your content so that only those who are subscribing to you or giving you something can get that insider information. Because when we tag like a whole bunch of places online, we're asking people to know where that location is and like go and see it and things like that. But when it's behind a paywall, you can still not gatekeep, but you just lessen the load of so many people finding out about that place. Or, just like don't tag the place on Instagram and then don't talk about how you're not going to tag it on Instagram. Just don't tag it and then walk away. Like, doesn't have to be that deep.
Yeah.
It's such a tricky balance though, because like you only have so much responsibility as a creator. Like, do you just not post or not geotag and stuff? And then are you gatekeeping in a number of ways as well? And so then it's this like funny balance of like, there is no right or wrong answer. It's this gray liminal space. And I think that's why we're so intentional about like teaching about traveling conscientiously. And like almost all of my like nature posts and stuff have like, remember, leave no trace. Cause like, but at the end of the day, you can only do so much and you can educate people as much as you want. But like, there's always going to be somebody who's, I don't know, it's kind of an uphill battle, really.
It is. It's like you can't really like win. There's no like win-win-win situation for everybody.
I think I'd like to frame it like this, though. I think that as we lean into our smaller niche of the internet, which I think is going to be slow travel, and I see that kind of taking off, it's about the intentionality behind it. And I think that a lot of folks now, the market is set up to where you make money if you show off new places. Like that's just kind of the content farming nature of content creation. And it's a double-edged sword because, people always want to find new places and people also have to pay bills. But I think that with our focus, we would rather teach you how to fish than to show you the secret pond. The big thing is to teach you how to travel intentionally. So maybe you'll take a back road as you're driving through, and maybe you'll stop at the hole in the wall. And it won't be us saying, you got to go to this hole in the wall off Route 22. It's teaching the consumer how to be a better traveler.
Yeah. You guys need a course on intentional travel.
We've been talking about it,
You
actually.
need a course. You need a podcast. You need a YouTube channel.
Oh my gosh, we filmed our first YouTube video together yesterday.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
We have a 10-part series coming up about living in 2 separate vans and the nuances behind why we do that, how we do it.
People like get bent out of shape with you guys about like the two vans, one relationship thing. So
2 vans, 2 brands. It's just,
Yeah.
they're like, wait, what? You guys aren't a couple on the Instagrams?
Yeah.
We're like,
that's a
well,
lot.
not really.
We're our own separate things. But I think to summarize what we were talking about just a moment ago, I think that it needs to be a cultural shift. And that we all have a responsibility as creators on like what we highlight and whatnot. But on the other hand, like we can't take that entire burden on ourselves. The consumers and the people going to these places also need to step up and take responsibility. And like if this hike or if this location is getting overrun, have a plan B. Like it's just like the way that we need to go about it. And it can't all rest on the creators who are doing it. The consumers need to start taking some responsibility for their actions.
And it's hard too because like the creators, as creators, you are also a consumer, like you're also on the other side, just like watching.
I was reading on Madden Media's website the other day, their CEO was talking about how there is a big shift in like the DMO space where it's kind of switching from showing off all these places that you can go and something for everyone to being like hyper personalized and an emotional trip. Like it has to be like feelings forward. And I think that's really an interesting shift as, like agencies and big tourism boards are starting to like turn the ship slowly. I think that's the direction we're all headed, which I think will be inherently positive.
Yeah.
I think too, the other thing is that like we just take from like that's been the way of travel for so long is like you go and you just take from different places and spaces and people. And I think the big shift that we're seeing now is shifting away from that take mentality that like I hate to say it, but I'm going to. The like colonizer way of like, I'm coming in, I'm going to take, I'm going to experience, I'm going to explore, la, 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 like that whole thing. And then it moves into this living, breathing, mindful experience instead of I'm going to take and explore and like exploit for lack of better word. And it's like, I'm going to become like a part of this cyclical space where I'm a part of what's happening in this region and I'm living in it and I'm impacting it and you're being intentional, you're being mindful, you're doing all of the things, right? There's this really great book called Living Resistance by Caitlin B. Curtis. And it's like a tiny book, but it's so good. And it's about this woman who was raised Native and in like a very white culture as well in the Midwest. And it's her coming back to her roots and figuring out, well, how do I live a more intentional life? And I think that we as travelers can get a lot out of that because it talks a lot about this reciprocal nature of how we interact with places and spaces and people.
The kind of people who are those takers, do you know who they are? They're the people who put the country counters in their bio.
I hate that so much. Oh my
What's the country counter?
Oh my gosh.
Am I missing this?
It's when
Like-
people count their countries, and then they use it as like a barometer of how good of a traveler you are.
yeah. I
And
know
then
those people.
I hate when it's like the first question that people will ask us too. They're like, "Well, how many countries have you been to?" Like, get off my nuts about it. Like, I've traveled so slowly.
How many locals know your name?
Yeah, yeah. Or like,
Got 'em.
and like, I don't know. I've done the full spectrum of different travel too, because like I've been to all 50 states, but I did that as a traveling performer when I was paid to like, I was in a new city every night. And it was like, that's why I'm so adamant about slow travel, is because I had to quickly travel and I hated it. And it was like, you just don't,
About it.
yeah. And so, yeah, I hate the country counter.
I once at one of the end of these podcast episodes, I slid that in at the very end. I was like, and I said something kind of like sly to people who count their countries. And I had people DMing me being like, this was so funny. And I thought people were going to come for me. And if they do, that's okay, because I don't care. That's their thing. But those are the people. Those are the same. They're the same people. I hate to say it.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna be divisive. It's just part of who we are as people.
Yeah, it's your brand. Yes, your brand will repel and it will attract, and that's what it's supposed to do.
We're also like, we're already so counterculture and like living van life in so many different ways. And like, we're not like the typical traveler in a lot of ways. We're just in nature, how we live our life is counterculture.
Speaking of that, I want to know the most hippie thing you've ever done or experienced in this van life era. I want some rapid fire, most hippie things you have done or are part of your routine.
Our routine. Well, we brush our teeth with clay.
Yeah. I make almost all of our cleaning and bath supplies and stuff. Like a couple of days ago, I made a rosemary hair rinse for Logan. And like, we just like go outside naked and like I cover his hair in the things. And like, I don't know, this morning.
It's incredible. I was skeptical, but it works very well.
Yeah. This morning we woke up on the side of a lake and we were so bummed because a truck drove up and like parked kind of close-ish. And like, we're both like, dang it, I was going to walk naked to my van. Now I got to put on clothes. And big like moment.
I'd say probably like 90% of the time we are straight up butt naked.
Which makes it a little bit difficult sometimes when we're like, we should capture more of our life. And we're like, we better put on clothes then.
Well, I just
We're
feel
bringing
like
back the loincloth. Loinfluencers.
Oh my God. You know what? I'm sure there's an OnlyFans niche for that, and that hasn't been started yet.
That would go really well. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe we're like in the wrong industry.
So
on content.
We're kind of talking about routine, at least your soap making and cleaning essential routine making. But I am obsessed with asking people about routines and like building routines, because deep down, I know you can never have it will never be perfect and you will never have a routine, but I sure like to try. I sure like to try and make it good, and it never works out. So I'm curious what your routine or lack thereof is like when because you've been doing this for so long that you know yourself and like your tendencies of, if I say I'm going to do this thing, will I really do it? Anyway, there's so many things involved with trying to get anything done when you live on the road, but I would like to hear how you try.
It's changed so much too since we've gotten together. Like,
our styles are very different.
Yeah. Like before this, I think I was a little bit stricter in my routines before we moved in together, you know,
your van or mine. Yeah.
My routines were a lot different because I would often forget, and I would like wake up, I would do like my spiritual practice, pulling cards, journaling, doing all that kind of thing, meditate. And then I would like get up and I would like slowly eat my gruel, which is just like a chia seed blend that I'm realizing how big of a hippie I am.
Wait.
It's like if oatmeal was way healthier for you.
So I am going to share. I'm so glad you brought up gruel, because at the end of this episode, I want to have you tell us your gruel recipe and instructions, because I want to leave it for listeners to make.
It's what you need. It's not what you want, almost ever.
I think it tastes a lot better if you overnight soak it. But anyway, so I have my gruel and then I would like get to work, but it would take me like 2 hours sometimes to eat gruel as I'm working, and I would just forget and like lose track of it. And then all of a sudden it's like midnight. And I'm like, oh, I should really go to bed. And then it'd be like 2 a.m. And I'm like, shoot, I should really go to bed. And like, I would just work for always like so late into the night. But then I would wake up early for like sunrise. I'm like, I'm going to get a sunrise time lapse. And so I'd wake up and then I'd come back and I would like take a nap or whatever. But I was so much more like, and like focused, for lack of a better word. But I wouldn't even call it focused. I feel like I was on the fast track towards burnout and like creating way too quickly, way too much. I wasn't feeding myself well. I wasn't sleeping well. I wasn't giving myself a lot of like time to just enjoy the things. Like if I went on a hike, I was still filming and like making sure that I was creating content along the way instead of like enjoying the hike. And so I think that since Logan and I have gotten together, my schedule is a lot better and I have a lot more moments of rest and food. And like every night he's like, if we fall asleep right now, we'll get
become a
6
joke.
hours of sleep or 4 hours. And like, so now it's this thing. And so I feel like my routine has changed a lot. And I'm a little bit more compassionate when my schedule isn't exactly the way I think it should be. And yeah, a little bit more flexible in that. Still struggling because there's certain aspects that are not like a part of my routine, like a regularly occurring workout. I cannot seem to do that in a way that like, because then I think about like, oh, I need to shower. Yeah. Or if it's too cold, I don't want to shower outside in the cold. If I can't heat up my shower bag.
Shower bag. Yeah.
I talk myself out of
The shower bag is awesome.
I have a shower bag.
Yeah. I think my approach to routine is much more chaos. And I think that I'm kind of in a space where, so I was a wildland firefighter for about six years. And so those days are like highly structured externally. And you do anywhere from like a 12 to a 16-hour day, depending on whether you were on a fire, off a fire, whatever. And so your day started at 0600 and it ended at 2200. And like that was your day. And so like you'd wake up super early thinking that you might already be late. Great way to start the day. And then you go to bed exhausted at the end of the day. And so like that was kind of my routine. And I've never gotten better sleep. I've never made more money. Like it was a good way to externally motivate me into having a routine. And then when I got out of fire, the pendulum swings to the other side of that. And then I was like, well, I don't want any routine. I'm ungovernable. And that's not healthy either.
Routine has been a constant conversation in our partnership
Yeah,
since the beginning.
So much so that it's also the joke. Because I think that, Candace came from a more rigid routine-based system and then found me right as I was like kind of doing that whole thing. And I think that we're kind of going to land back in the middle.
And I've structured my routines around, there's a book called The Power of When, and it talks about like your chronotype. And so for me, it told me like, because I tried for years to be like a morning, quote unquote, morning person. I'm not. I'm never going to be that ever. And that's totally okay. And so it's taken a long time, like years of like trying to give myself grace to get to this point. And now I'm like, okay, I know my optimal time to wake up is like 7 or 8. And then I'll stay up until like 11 if I'm like being good. Normally I go a little later than that because crackhead energy and I stay up super late. So like I just get in the zone and then I can't stop and it's like a freight train. But
yeah,
it's like, yeah, that power of when was really helpful to structuring my days to like think about, well, when is my power hour? When am I the most creative? When is the time that I don't have as much energy, but I have the energy to do the admin work? And so I structure my day a little bit around that while also recognizing that I have pretty severe ADHD. And so I need to also like give myself some flexibility to run with the hyper focus when it comes through. And like, if that means that the idea or like the plan of my day gets derailed and I end up writing 5 blog posts in a day instead, like work with it, go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's this balance once again of like how much structure is good and how much free flow allows for the beautiful wonder that ends up coming through.
Okay, guys, I'm going to spill the beans. I'm going to spill the beans here on how the heck Matt and I kept up with the routine when we were living in a tent on the top of our SUV. We didn't. Spoiler alert. There were times where we didn't go to the gym because it was just one more thing to do. It was too far away or it was too much effort. And when you're living like that every single day, one, it creates unhealthy habits, but it's also just like one more decision you have to make. We also ate a lot less healthier and a lot less fresh fruit and vegetables because we had a cooler and we just couldn't keep things fresh for very long, especially being out in the desert. It just wasn't safe. It wasn't possible. And it was expensive because a lot of the food we would have, we would ruin. So I cannot tell you how many quesadillas I have consumed. The number of quesadillas that have been put in this body in the last year should be studied because it's amazing I'm upright. We ate so many cheese and bean quesadillas all the time because it was so easy. And honestly, most of the time, our breakfast was a Core Power protein shake that I cannot even smell them anymore without like having a visceral reaction because we had way too many of them. Way too many. I also had a lot of later on like yogurt, and I don't do so well with the yogurt situation, but I think I've kind of overcome that a little bit just because out of like necessity, just like needing to eat something. So many bananas. Oh, okay, I don't need to tell you every single thing I ate, but we didn't really figure out a routine and it was so difficult. And I would say one of the only reasons we got anything done is because I had client work that had to happen on deadlines. And so sometimes I would say to Matt, like, listen, like, I've got a lot of stuff to do and we need to we need to go and find a place early in the morning for me to do my work and then we can move on to the next place because it has to happen. So honestly, like the client deadlines just kept me going. So that was fantastic. But if it was a deadline for my own work, it was like, no, I'm going to go outside and look at this mountain or I'm going to do work on the back end of my business. I'll let you guess which one I picked.
Well, and Chelsea used to like write down like, this is my to-do list for the day. And it was always miles long. I've seen shorter trains. But like she would like start working on her day and she was like just frenetic because like she has so many things and she's like very slowly crossing them off. I'm like, stop it. Like then we try to switch to like, okay, maybe just like ascribe time frames to each of these tasks and then you'll see how your day fills up so quickly. But then she's like, all right, write 5 blog posts, 30 minutes. You know, and I'm just like, no, not helpful. And so, you know, one day when we were talking about it, I was like, well, do you think it would be helpful if you had an idea of what you wanted to do during the day, but you actually put your focus on recapping the day at the end? And so now you call it your gratitude journal?
It's in my planner, but instead of writing to-dos, I just write like what I did instead, like at the end of the day. And that's been really helpful. I also, okay, maybe I am a bigger hippie than I realize. I also plan my week around the planet. So
Tell me more.
So Fridays are Venus's day. And so that's a day for like more compassion, love, a little bit more like that's usually my self-care day where I'll do a face mask or like I'll do a really restorative yin practice or something like that. Tuesday is like the Mars day. So that's courage, action, execution. So that one is like tackling big tasks, high energy work, more intense movement. So like I also coordinate my workouts with this as well. And I notice that like my, like, it's just so nice because then I'm like, oh, I do have the energy for this. Okay. It helps me not just try to go like full masculine all the time and be like, I'm going to do a HIIT workout every day and I'm going to achieve all this and blah, 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 blah. Instead, now I have like purposeful rest days embedded in where like I know that I'm going to do these other high intensity things, whether it's filming or writing or whatever, but I also know that I have rest coming up. And so it helps trust in myself that I am not going to full bore towards burnout like I have in the past.
Yeah. We talked about this too, Candace, and it's so funny because you had sent me a voice message about procrastination, and I actually did some research and recorded a podcast episode about procrastination yesterday. But we had talked about how when you're working on something, it's so much easier to do the work you need to do when you know you're going to give yourself a break. And I try and do that, but it's like we are just little monkey brains. It's so much better when we have like a little treat to look forward to, even if that treat is doing nothing. Like it's wonderful.
I'm reading this book about ADHD in women, and I just got to the procrastination section yesterday, and so I'll finish reading that this afternoon, and I'll get back to you because it's really interesting about. She said that women with ADHD don't procrastinate in the same way that neurotypicals do. Instead, we procrastinate with doing little activities that like are still important, but like instead of doing the bigger work that we're wanting to do, like instead of recording the video or editing the footage, we're going to do all this admin little things that feel like we're being impactful, but are actually not impactful at
Yeah.
all.
hmm
Um,
Speaking of this, okay, there's one other thing I wanted to talk about, and then I want to hear your favorite books. But I am also so curious about how, like you said, when you go on a hike, you are like working, you're bringing your camera, you're recording things. How have you tried to balance enjoying being in nature while working? Because theoretically, every time you step outside, or like anytime you're in a van, you could be recording something. So I want to know how you handle that.
Have you ever seen the movie Secret Life of Walter Mitty?
No.
Okay, well, I highly recommend it
Okay.
because it talks about a lot of like burnout, finding a purpose, mission. It's also very photography driven. So I love it. But there's a scene in the movie there where there'll be mild spoilers here.
Okay.
Where Sean Penn has a photo assignment to photograph like rare leopards in like the Himalayas. And that's where Walter finds him. And he's got this perfect shot lined up. And Walter asks, so are you going to take the shot? And he's like, sometimes when the moment is perfect, I just watch. I think that like is very impactful for me. So it's like, I'm definitely choosing the moments that are ones that I want to share, and then moments that are just for me or Candace and I. And I think that is also kind of ties into the rest and rejuvenation. Like sometimes I don't want to just drag my camera out there. Will I? I'm probably still going to do that. But, I take fewer photos and I try to be more in the moment.
Mhm.
Sometimes it helps too to not think about the end product too. And so there's moments for sure when we're like, okay, this is our intention when we're going out there. We're going to film X, Y, or Z. But there's also times when it's like, we're just going to go out and take photos. And if we use them for a project or something, cool. If we don't, that's also cool. And it's just like, we're taking photos for ourselves. We were listening a little bit to Rick Rubin this morning, who talks a lot about creativity and how to not burn out basically, and to like create a little bit more for yourself instead of for others. And so his whole thing is like, don't prioritize the audience so much, which is so opposite from what most gurus these days are saying. It's like, oh, well, you need to like, everything needs to provide value for your consumer, la, 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 and all these things, which sure, yeah, provide value. But on the other hand, like what you create needs to be because you love it and you want to create it. If what you're creating doesn't come from that space, it's going to come off as being very superficial and a little flat. And you're not going to have the same longevity to like keep creating that stuff if you're not loving it. And so everything that we do as creatives needs to come from a place of loving it and wanting to provide, like to do that thing. And that in itself will provide value to others.
Yeah.
And I noticed like within my own accounts and stuff, whenever I switched my mindset to be like, oh, I have to provide value to so-and-so, then like I noticed that like my growth just like stagnated and I like could not get forward. But then as soon as I like shift it to be, oh, well, I love creating this and I want to like, this is my personal diary in a number of ways. And it'll still provide value and I'll still like listen to my audience and like create based on what they're like wanting as well or like needing. Cause it's like, oh, that vibes with me. That feels good to create that. And then I can do that. It has to start from wanting to create something and like enjoying it. And I think before Logan and I got together, I was in that space of like, oh, I need to just create. and I need to do this. And like it takes the joy out of it when
Yeah.
you're not resting and you're not doing stuff for yourself and you
Yeah.
feel like you're just like a cog in the machine, right?
Content machine.
Yeah.
People can tell. Like, people can tell when you post about stuff that you don't really care about. Not that you wouldn't post anything you don't care about, but when you're not like fully in it,
Fully in it.
you can just like tell. And I think it's
Vibe.
because we're just like humans and people. I learned this a while ago, but I heard a while ago that we should stop like replacing the word algorithm and just replace it with like people. Like, what would you want to share with somebody? And it's like, yeah, this is like we forget that we're talking to other people. We're just talking to humans. It's not that deep. But that's a whole nother thing. I literally wrote down to do a podcast episode about that. Just about that. Okay, some books that you love. You've already mentioned like 3 amazing ones. I did an episode on books and I need to do another one, and I am trying to recall a single book that I talked about in that episode and I can't. But books you loved or have been helpful, I would love to hear.
Okay, so Blue Highways by William Lease Teat Moon. And I think it was like shortly after I moved into the van, because I remember making the connection that he was in an old Econoline and I was in an old Econoline.
Whoa.
The title of the book comes from the fact that back in those days, and I think maybe even still now, the bigger arterial like interstate system are red, and the smaller, older, like wavy flow with the land kind of highways that would go through the original infrastructure of the country were blue. And so he built this entire circle around the states that he was going to drive. And it happened like after some really hard times in his life. And he was like, I've got to hit the road. I need to get out there. I need to like see some things, clear my head, go for a drive on hard mode. And it was a book entirely about the things that he discovered along the way and the people that he met, and like how it was so transformative and therapeutic for him. And I will talk until I'm blue in the face about how the interstate system is ruining a lot of things. But like those blue highways, I've flown over towns where I know there's an interstate and I know there's an old road. And I see the old road just kind of bopping along straight through downtown. The next one, straight through downtown. And then I see the highway, straight, whoop, straight, whoop. And it's just like, those towns are now dying because no one stops anymore. And, there's so many examples of that. And it kind of ties into our like support local economies. It's such a better way to travel when you just slow down. And oftentimes, when you go onto like Google Maps and you click avoid highways, that will keep you off of like bigger interstates and freeways. And oftentimes it doesn't add like a crazy amount of distance, and you will see so much more. The hour-long drive turns to 120, but you saw like 8 cool things along the way that you never even knew were in your backyard. Like little challenges like that can really just like open up a whole new world for you. So that was really an important book for me early in my van life experience.
I feel like that annoying girl who studied abroad and now thinks she's an expert in that country. Because of the amount of times that I bring up the fact that we lived in a rooftop tent and traveled the country. But when that happened, we kind of had a route in mind and kind of didn't. And there was one time we were passing down a road and I saw a sign for something called Goblin Valley State Park. And I was like, oh, weird, because we were in the middle of nowhere, like nothing. And then you just see a sign. And so I looked it up. And it looked absolutely amazing, and we turned around and we went, and it was like one of our favorite places we went the entire time, and I absolutely loved it. And it's just a little reminder that if we had stuck with the main highways, we would have never visited one of our favorite places. Okay, Candace, hit me with your books.
I listen to a lot of audiobooks while I'm driving, but I really loved The Way of Wanderlust by Don George, and it's just a series of travel stories and whatnot. He's like a very, very, very prolific travel writer. He's been a travel writer for like 40 years or something like that. And he just has brilliant brilliant stories. The Way of Wanderlust is kind of a compilation of different stories that helped guide his journey just as a human, and like pivotal moments and little moments that helped him develop his writing skills as well. So it's a really like fully encompassing traveler writer journey of with just short stories of his travels and these beautiful moments. And it's cool seeing how everybody creates their own way of traveling, right? And then there's different fads that go through like different generations. Like in the 70s, everybody was all about like hitchhiking across the US and stuff like that. And like now people don't do that as much, And so it's fun to hear all these different stories and to see how people have traveled and how we're still traveling and learning the same lessons 50 years later,
Yeah, because we can't learn. That's awesome. Yeah, now it's the vans, it's the living nomadically like that in a
Yeah.
vehicle that was
But now,
hitchhiking was.
Yeah.
Right.
but like everything, like everything has like the authentic core starting group that believe in the mission. And then there's the bastardization and monetization of that. And so like now you're even seeing that in like van life culture when the $200,000 Sprinter rolls up to the Walmart parking lot. You're like, interesting.
There's definitely a caste system within the van life community, and sometimes it feels a little bit like a pissing match where I'm like, okay.
I think I was at the bottom of that caste system. I think I was at the bottom.
Oh, I highly doubt that.
In a tent? Can we get lower?
Yeah, the camping tents, those are tough. Yeah. Oof, those are.
At least yours was higher. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Those tents that's living van life on hard mode or like nomadic life on ultra hard mode.
that is an expensive way to be 8 feet higher.
But your morale will be 6 feet lower, I'll tell you.
There is absolutely a van life caste system. And if you don't think there is, then you are not on our side of the internet. Would I do my cross country experience again in a $200,000 van? No, I would not. And here's why. I would not do that same exact trip in a $200,000 van because one, we moved too quickly, but two, the problems and like the biggest challenges we faced on the road were trying to make routine and trying to figure out the best places to like work and get anything done. And that all stemmed from like me. Just because my environment might have been a little bit different, I'm not sure if that would have solved all my issues. What I really needed to do is take a big fat break from work. Do I think it would have made things easier? Absolutely. We would have not eaten just quesadillas. Perhaps I would have had a fruit or a vegetable. That would have been fantastic. But I think the overall like biggest pain point was that like schedule and routine, and maybe a van with walls would have helped that experience. But overall, I'm not sure. I think right now I'm just feeling a little bit burned by van life. And I think if I were to do something like that again, I will be taking time off and I will not be using my computer except for writing like amazing things that just come spur of the moment.
I think that a really positive trend that I am seeing in book culture and the people that are actually reading books right now is that indigenous wisdom is getting a foothold. And I think that is so important to fixing the disease that is American capitalism. And it's the only way that's going to save us from ourselves.
So
like
true.
Blue Highways. William Lee C. Moon was indigenous. And the book that I want to recommend now is called Braiding Sweetgrass. Have you heard of that one? It's so good. I really love, particularly with that book being newer, how they're threading the needle about, the honorable harvest and making sure that it is a symbiotic relationship that if you take, you also give back, and the reciprocity and the relationship that we have with nature and the world and people around us, and that it matters that we give a damn. And I've just really been enjoying the metaphors that she's able to just like so beautifully weave. I feel like I've been screaming a lot of these things till I'm blue in the face, and I'm just not having the right approach, or I'm just like it's not connecting. And I'm seeing how I should connect it in that book to reach the people that I know need it the most.
Yeah.
Another documentary that would be in a similar vein is called Inhabitants. And that's another like really beautiful, hopeful, and empowering documentary of like just leaning into native wisdom and how to listen and like act accordingly. It's a brilliant documentary too.
I haven't heard of that one. Yeah, I've noticed that. And I wondered if you were going to say that there's a lot more discourse, even on what I feel like is my side of the internet, that people are in the travel space leaning more towards at least just learning about native practices. And I'm like, this is so epic. Because in my little tiny town, that they were quite literally native people who like lived where my house is sitting. All of the towns around here, all of the schools are like named after native tribes, which is like a whole nother issue we don't need to discuss. But we just never like got the education on even the people that lived here. And it's such a disservice. And that's so many parts of the country. It's crazy.
Yeah, if they're listed on the signs at all, it just says the Indians.
You should see my high school. You should see the mural on my high school gymnasium wall that they painted in 2017. Is bad.
So I'm picturing the mural that was in the Pawnee City Hall.
Quite literally, it's that.
The Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Parks and Rec episode. Yeah. And it's just like so wrong that they have to like cover it up eventually.
We're close. We're not far off.
I think that there's also a generational thing potentially here. I don't want to alienate necessarily, but I think that some of the older generations just they're not curious. Like they are well in their comfort zone. They have made their money. They have their houses. They have their retirement for now, and they are set. They're like, I'm good. I've got what I need, and just cruise controlling it. And I think that younger generations, maybe because we've been scrappier or what have you, we're just curious. Like we're way more curious about everything. And so I'm seeing a lot of folks just like discovering a lot of things about our history that's not even that old.
No, I know.
That's the big thing. It's like 4 or 5 generations. And it's like just really cool to see people just like genuinely becoming interested in the history that was never taught.
It is wild.
Because that ties into travel. That ties into travel in every single way. Like, how are you going to travel on land that you have no idea what's happened there?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's a really good travel writer I like, Pico Ayer. He's really popular. You heard of this man? Yeah. I think he's just my favorite travel writer, but he talks about like the sense of home and stuff, and it's really interesting. He talks about like living in an airport, and it's really cool. But anyway, we love that. We love that for Pico.
He spoke at the at TravelCon 2022.
He did.
It was so good. Yeah, it was like the best. I think that TravelCon's YouTube has it on there too if you want to watch it because it's brilliant.
My man Pico. I'm gonna look it up.
I think another book for creatives specifically would be Effortless by Greg McKeown.
I just picked up that book because I read my favorite book. I think my favorite book ever is Essentialism by him. Mm-hmm. So I was at my library's book sale and they had, what is it called? The next one, you just said it.
It's Effortless.
Effortless. And I was like, I will do whatever this man says for the end till the end of time.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's honestly, it's so brilliant. I come from a health and fitness background. So like I was a strength training and conditioning coach and went to school for physical therapy and whatnot. And so like he relates burnout and like progress to athletics, which of course like connected really well for me to like recognize the importance of rest and the importance of prioritizing and stuff. Like I think one of his connections was in the old days, I shouldn't say old days, that's not a great way of saying it, but like pre-70s, 80s, they used to work out all their athletes like constantly. There was never like tapering periods or rest or anything. And then they started to notice that like the athletes did better with like tapering weeks or right, exactly, like your body needs rest. And so then they saw like, I forget who the athlete was, but he like rested for a couple days leading up to an event and ended up like breaking records. And they did it again. And once again, broke records, all of these things, right? But it's brilliant. You'll enjoy the book. I'm excited to hear your report back.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Essentialism is I need to reread it. Is there anything else you feel like you want to say that you're like, oh, if I say this, my piece will be had?
I mean, I think one thing, kind of to tag on to the book thing is that we need to get people buying books in the right places. And this goes back to the shopping local situation. It ties into everything. But like, we need to be highlighting local bookshops. We need to be using library resources. Like Libby is super useful for people who are on the road and don't have much space. Like the number of times we've like bought books and then had to cycle through them because like we just don't have the space to carry them. And we love like, be like lending them to a friend or being like, hey, you can keep this one, pass it to somebody else that's going to need it when you're done. Just like sharing economies just work. And your library is doing incredible things. And a lot of people are sleeping on it, like audiobooks, ebooks, physical copies. If you're a stationary human, it's like, it's very, very useful. And you'll always be able to get a book cheaper on Amazon. But for the love of God, don't. For the love of everything good, do not. There's a reason they put their sale this year on the same days as all the local bookstores' big sale weekend.
Fuck them, dude. Literally fuck them. You know what's so funny is you'll appreciate this. Quite literally just a few hours ago, I was on my local library's website looking for something, and I found that they have LinkedIn Learning. Like, it's like a paid, like I used to use that, a couple of years ago, because I was on like a student free trial or something. It was like free for EDU email. And then I was like, oh my God, so your library has it. And yeah, that's just one example of the things that they have that nobody realizes.
Yeah. They also have magazines. So like all the new National Geographic magazines or whatever it is that you want, like you can get a notification like as soon as it's released. Yeah. They have it digitally. So like I can look at it on my phone. Plus their events are so fun at libraries. Like you sleep on the events too.
I do.
Libraries could use some life.
They could. My mom was a librarian for a couple of years, and you two will probably appreciate this too. But I would, she would always come home with the craziest stories, and so I started like voice memoing them from her, of like tell me all the like crazy shit that's happened, and I want to write it in a like short stories book or something. I don't think I have like really the skills to do that, or the super desire, but I have all these like voice memos from her stories of like the crazy stuff that happened in my teeny tiny town's library. But yeah. Okay, I love that. We love a library. Oh, I have a really good question for you that I just thought of. I'm so sorry. Okay. If somebody is like, I want that. That sounds great. Tell me more. Where do I begin? What would be a good starting point?
I think it's important to think about intentional travel like a workout at the gym. You're not going to walk over to the free weight section and just go start pumping the 90s. It's like that's gonna hurt you. Like that's not good for you. You will not like it, and you will probably never come back. If you go over there and you start like tweaking on the 15s, you're like, all right, nice, I like this, and then the next week you're like, all right, we're up to the 20s, let's go. It's small steps. If you're on a 4-day road trip, maybe you would make one of the days the day where you avoid highways. It's little shifts.
I think it starts with an audit, like a really intentional self audit, where you're very honest with yourself, like almost brutally so, about like reflecting on previous travel experiences and really diving into what are little steps that you can make based on your baseline right now. And if switching one of your hotel rooms or something, if that's like all you can do, then that's also perfect. But it starts first with like recognizing where you're at and making the adjustments as you can, like Logan was saying. You don't want to try to like, if you're a luxury traveler who loves a Hilton, maybe your next trip at like a homestay is like, that's gonna be such a jump. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Like
local boutique hotel that is bougie.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like already in the heart of downtown, and it's not built out in suburbia. Yeah, like that is a great move. Yeah. I think also like when it comes to travel to like be less scared of people. Like
Yeah.
travel has become so individualized, particularly in the States. I think that's just like part of our culture. And like we almost want this like sterile travel environment so we can have the perfect memory. But if people are really honest while they're doing their audit, some of their probably favorite stories came from that one kid that they saw do a backflip on a rope swing while they were down by the river, or like anytime that they just like brushed into a local or another traveler, or maybe like somebody coming in from like another country and they got to learn about a different culture. Like that's what makes travel so impactful, is experiencing things outside of your own world.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's the entire thing. Like if you're doing an audit, like see where you can start to just do like little brushes, like maybe going from like, your hotel room with your spouse to single beds in a hostel isn't the move, but it's like, but maybe it's the couple's room in the hostel. It's like, okay, little steps. And now you're brushing shoulders with the right people who will then give you more authentic ways to travel while you're in a place.
It's so funny because the couple's room in a hostel would be like luxurious to me.
Right?
Oh yeah, totally.
All right, I'm going to do a little self audit here. And so, yeah, feel free to judge me. Go ahead. What ways can I travel more intentionally? This is a great question. I think I could be better at using public transportation in new places I visit. I'm so quick to choose the fastest option or the easiest option, which would be like to get an Uber going somewhere. And rarely do I consider that I should be trying to use the public transportation when I'm going into a new city. Maybe I shouldn't say rarely, but it's never like super top of mind unless I'm visiting like a major city that I am sure has like adequate public transportation. Sorry, I gotta literally, oh my God, Andrea just texted me. Wait, Andrea texted me separately. And then Marie, you're texting me right now. Marie, you are saying an episode request. Oh my God, Marie has an episode request. Do one on newsletter collabs. Okay, word. Okay. Where could I improve on slow travel? So many ways. One of the reasons I'm feeling so burnt out from travel right now, could my phone please fucking stop? 1, probably leaving my phone at home. But 2, literally traveling more slowly. I think that is such a great way to like spend more money in a local place, get to know the community better, but also just have way more fun. It's so much easier to enjoy where you're going if you are moving way more slowly. So that's one way I can do it. And now that I've been a little bit honest with you, I would highly encourage you to journal, like seriously have a minute to think about the ways you can be more intentional. And maybe if you're listening on an airplane right now, fantastic way to do this. If you're going to a new place soon, going on a new adventure, this is a great time to do this journaling. I feel so inspired to travel way more slowly and like seriously take some time off while traveling after having this conversation with Candace and Logan. And I know that you're going to want to as well. So if you want to connect more with Candace and Logan, you can connect with Logan on Instagram at Full Exposures, FOLL Exposures. And if you really want to get personal with him, you can connect with his personal account at Logan Full on Instagram. And for Candace, on Instagram, you can find Candace at chasing.candace, which I think is so awesome. Such a cute little username. Honestly, I would say top 10 in the travel space. Maybe top 5 even, Candace. It's that good. Maybe it's the top. No. You know who else I loved? Grace. Grace was on the podcast. I'm not sure if it's her username anymore, but her travel username used to be Grace Escapes. Fantastic. Those two, 1 and 2 right there. Absolutely fabulous. But that's not the point of this. Thank you so much, Candace and Logan, for hopping on and chatting with me about slow, intentional travel. I feel way more inspired, and I hope you do too. Please go out and tell them I sent you and say hello to them on Instagram. But until then, I wish you the happiest of creating, and I'll see you soon. Love you so much. Bye. Oh my gosh, Marie. Last week I asked you about coffee, but I want to know about your other bevies. This right here is a tangerine LaCroix. Very into it. I would say my favorite right now is limoncello. Wondering how I feel about sparkling water. It feels like it's a very polarizing thing. Some people love it. Some people really do not like it. I am obsessed with like Olipop. Like love that. Like if I could like crack open like a Coke and it'd be good for me, that's what I would be doing all of the time. All of the time. So Olipop feels closer to that because I'm not like a pop soda drinker. But I want to know what you are. What are you? What are you? And then maybe next week I'll ask you about your favorite cocktail because I genuinely want to know that information. But
hey y'all, this is Marie, Laura's producer. Y'all heard me in the last episode when Laura asked me about coffee, and I wanted to answer her on this question because I kind of have a weird story about like sparkling water. So I'll try to condense it down, but I wanted to move to LA. I used to be into fashion photography, and I worked for the most insane fashion photographer. Like, think Devil Wears Prada. Like, and I was Anne Hathaway. I was just clueless about the hellhole I was about to work at. By the way, it was an internship, and this man was psycho. Like, psycho, screaming. He used to work for Terry Bugler, if you know him. He's a nightmare in the net fashion world. Anywho, the only time I would get like relief, like mental relief, is when like he would allow me to go into his fridge, which was just pretty much vodka and sparkling water. And I would go get sparkling water, and it's the only thing that calmed me while I was working for him, to like hold something, control something. So I didn't like sparkling water, but whenever we had our meetings with him screaming at me, I would just sip on the sparkling water. And yeah, now I like sparkling water because I was hostage, pretty much. That's your answer, Laura, but that's why I like sparkling water now. But yeah, we would love to hear more about like how are y'all slow traveling, or are y'all dealing with like the struggle of routine. I just did a 10-month backpacking trip, and that was slow travel is the way it is. Anyways, we want to know, are y'all also struggling with slow travel and routine? And just, it's so difficult. So hit us up at Travel Content Writing on Instagram. Like, we want to feel seen, because routine and travel is probably one of the most difficult things out there. So anyways, cheers till next time, and we'll see you on the next episode.